Well, it's the end of the year, but let's talk about something new, which is the new moon that happens on December 30th here, Pacific time, where I'm at, in the sign of Capricorn. For all you Capricorn people out there who have Capricorn risings, celebrate this one. It might not be feeling celebratory for many people, but Capricorn people are used to celebrating in a conservative manner. It's kind of a joke, but it's true. I'll pull up the chart here in a second and talk about some aspects, but I do want to point out here that I think it's interesting at the end of the year what happens in people's minds, right? It's a difference that you're looking back at the last 12 months and you're looking ahead and you're kind of in this space of like review and then goal setting possibly, or some people are just running away from it all because they're in the holiday season, so on and so forth. Hopefully you're playing a video game that you love or reading a book that you just received that you loved and disappearing. But I don't think you could ignore this new moon. And I'll show you a couple reasons why. Here is the chart for the new moon in Capricorn. I'll point out here at 9 degrees Capricorn. So for anybody who's in this beginning week of Capricorn birthdays, your birthday's at 8, 9, 10 degrees, this is a huge new moon for you, and so on and so forth. So there's 9 degrees here. We see new moons are beginning. We don't see it in the sky per se, the moon. It's usually several days later when the moon starts to show itself in crescent form that one can feel like whatever they thought about or it tried to initiate during the new moon might appear in a sense. And if you want something to appear here, I'll give you a couple pointers. First off, we got the new moon here, but we want to look at what else is happening in this chart. And I see the biggest thing happening here is the Saturn at 14 degrees and Jupiter at 13, which is currently retrograde. It's less than a week from this date that we've had our second Jupiter-Saturn square. The first one that happened here at the end of summer or winter in the southern hemisphere was our first foray into the challenge of Jupiter-Saturn. And back then, Saturn was moving backwards and Jupiter was full-on expanding forward. So Jupiter sort of more supposedly had its way around that time. But this time, the roles are reversed. And Saturn here, the taskmaster, the disciplinarian, is the one in control. And there might be many of you out there who do not like this. You might not like it. But the biggest thing about Saturn stories in people's lives is a lot of times a certain type of acceptance of the reality and the themes that it's bringing. And I think a lot of times when people are not accepting the reality, no matter how harsh it is, it becomes you resist. Resistance sometimes brings fear and becomes a weight on someone's shoulder. Now, if you're a mutable person like a Pisces or a Gemini, Sagittarius, or Virgo, you've been feeling this. Now, I'm pointing out Saturn here because Saturn is the natural ruler of Capricorn. So they have an affinity for each other here. That's why I think for many Capricorns, I think this is a pretty good new moon because you might know how to work with Saturn literally, and others who appreciate Saturn stories for the most part, or at least honors Saturn, can at least know what this is. And what this is we see Saturn here going to Jupiter. Jupiter's in Gemini, right? Moving backwards. It's the talker, right? Gemini. And we're going to go, oh, what planet rules Gemini? Oh, we're going to look to Mercury here in Sagittarius, which is slowly coming out of its retrograde cycle. And a lot that's happened since November, the beginning of November till now with the Mercury retrograde in Sag, its relation to Saturn, the restriction, the tests, the Jupiter pushing Mercury here to keep going when it shouldn't, and say maybe it should kind of focus on 1 to 2 things instead of 10 things. Mercury here kind of has a little bit of a fresh start feeling and hopefully picked up some pointers along the retrograde to help with this. But what does this really mean? You know, in my opinion, this new moon ruled by Saturn and Pisces and how we kind of ended up in Mercury land, I think it's a chance for one to be discerning with all the information and all the research and all the debate and everything that's happened the last couple of months, even the purchases that you made, so on and so forth, that at this point, Hopefully you figured something out, that you actually know something. Not that you act like you know something, you actually know something. And can you take those lessons that Mercury has hopefully brought into your world, Mercury and Sagittarius, and be discerning about it and critical about what is real and what is not, and then what is practical to move forward with knowledge-wise. Now, Mercury and Sagittarius deals in the sense with our seeking of the philosophical and the truth and the highest truth. What is that for you at this point? You can look to the Sagittarius part of your chart to see the themes that are going on. You can look to Gemini part 2 if you want, and the Pisces. They're all been interacting in tense, challenging ways. But at this point, Mercury is the messenger. And if you really have taken in the messages and understand, then you have a duty. You have a duty, and you have to honor and respect the messages that are coming to you, even if you do not like them. A lot of times, Mercury and Sagittarius will have a tendency to be overly optimistic and brush over the harsher, colder parts of life. That's what Saturn is always bringing up to somebody, right? And Sagittarius doesn't want to deal with that. The planetary ruler Jupiter doesn't want to do that. And Jupiter's been going backwards in Gemini. There's been a running away from reality. And I really think here one has to be honorable and disciplined and be real and be dutiful to the actual truth that has come into play for you. I think here when it comes to knowing, which is the Gemini Sagittarius axis in astrology, it's how we start knowing, how we come to knowing, and what that knowing is in the end of our deepest truth that we hold to ourselves, what we stand by, our philosophical code, needs discipline and structure. And with discipline and structure, those are Saturn words, we can eventually have that truth, that vision one adheres to, come into reality, become crystallized, and become real in the matter. Not just up here, not just some dream, not just some hopeful so-and-so where you're just riding on hope constantly. It's like, no, hope's great, but it has to turn into something. Turning it into something is about hard work, discipline, and being responsible and the duty it takes to follow through on those things. That's my view here on a new moon in Capricorn. There's a couple other things happening there. I'll show you a couple things as filler before I head out of here. And this is important because this is brewing the week, is we have a Mars Pluto opposition, so there's massive power play involved here, and we are dealing with a Venus square Uranus aspect that just happened. I think those things are around, but it all comes down to Mercury and Saturn on this one. And you know me if you've been watching this channel. I'm all about those two planets these days. I think you cannot ignore what's happened in the last several months with the Mercury retrograde and the power, the true power that Saturn has with bringing reality into your life and the acceptance that you have to take with this. Some of you out there, you know what this is all about, and you're up for the challenge, up for the responsibility, right? Up for reestablishing solid habits that are structured and give you healthy limitations. So something on the pillars and foundations in your life, you have something to stand upon that's long lasting, basically. You made it this far. Thanks for watching. I hope everybody out there is having an interesting holiday at least, and picking up on those knowing signals and then realizing, oh, I know this now. And in the beginning of the year, you can kind of slowly implement those things, right? If you haven't been able to watch my playlist, I'll put the link up here and in the bio, see it up here. I did 12 rising sign videos forecast for the year, a lot of Saturns and those videos, and please go ahead and check those out. Please subscribe, hit the bell to know when I go live, which could be at any time, by the way. All right, on that note, I hope you finish out the year happy and healthy.